You know, we've been told for decades now by our school teachers, by environmentalists, and in fact even the media, that wind and solar power, ethanol, all were supposed to save the environment and make for a better, more efficient way of life. Even electric-powered cars were supposed to be a better way of life. But what if I showed you evidence that, in fact, these green energies are anything but green, and without government subsidies, they operate at a complete loss? So windmills and solar panels are renewable energies. Really? Let's see how renewable they are. First, you have to mine for the material in order to build the tower. And then if you want to build the blades, they're often made out of lightweight plastics and carbon fibers. Well, there's oil for you. To regulate the power, you're going to need lithium batteries. You have to mine for lithium, and the disposal of lithium is toxic. Then you got to figure solar panels operate the exact same way, made out of pretty much the same materials. Then there's all those toxic batteries added on top of that. Now throw in the electric cars that environmentalists want us to all be driving around, and those electric cars operate on lithium batteries. Add those to the mound. That's a lot of mining and a pretty big toxic mess to clean up. Then we find out that countries like England are going through blackouts and brownouts because solar and wind energy is completely unreliable, does not produce the energy that is promised. Europe has also learned that for every one green energy job created, 2.5 have been lost. And then we find out that solar and wind energy is so inefficient when the windmills break down and the solar panels break because of hail and windstorms and just average bombardment from the sun, they're not replaced because it's too expensive to replace them. Then let's not forget the danger these windmills pose toward nature. Ouch! So let's run the numbers here. How much land is it going to take to plant all of those windmills, all of those solar panels, and all of that corn? An acre of U.S. corn yields about 7,100 pounds of corn for processing, and that turns into about 328 gallons of ethanol. But you need about 140 gallons of fuel to do that. And we haven't even gotten to the processing plant yet. Billions every year in current federal and state subsidies go into ethanol. And when these subsidies have been taken away, the ethanol plants have closed down. That doesn't sound very efficient. Then you've got to consider the amount of land that is needed in order to produce enough ethanol to feed the needs of the country. Then how much land are you going to need for all of the windmills and all of the solar panels? You're going to end up taking up most of the country just to produce the same amount of energy that currently comes out of gas, oil, and coal. And if you're producing that much ethanol, you haven't thought about the dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. Ever hear about that? All of the fertilizer that runs down through the Gulf of Mexico causes dead zones every single year that are far worse than anything the recent oil spill has ever produced. And this happens every year. So increase the size of land needed to produce the ethanol you're talking about, and how big does that dead zone get every single year? Now, it's going to cost you $41,000 to buy a new Chevy Volt, but the government's going to give you $7,600 or so in a rebate. So in other words, we had to subsidize these cars to design them, subsidize them to build them, and then subsidize these cars to get you to buy them. How much does that car really cost? Add to that the batteries are toxic, which is not good for the environment. Is this really worth it? It turns out that just the standard automobile is more cost-effective and more fuel-efficient than any electric car that's ever been invented. So please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm all for new technologies. I'm all for a clean planet. The fact of the matter is these technologies are not working. Unless they're heavily subsidized by the government, they don't stand a chance. They're not cleaner. They're not safer.